So it's commute. Today we're going to talk about car servicing. So how do you service your car? When should you service your car? Things like how often should you change your oil? Should you change your oil at all? What kind of oil should you put? So many things. The dangers of not servicing your car, a lot of things. So first of all, we'll begin by what do we mean by car servicing? So car servicing is pretty much maintenance. The better you maintain your car, the longer you can keep it, the better it stays in shape, the less you visit the mechanic. Basically, a well-maintained car equals peace. So, what are some of the fundamentals that you need to know to maintain your car? First of all, it's good that it's good to understand your car. Like, you don't need to know much, but at least you should know something. It's really good to know what kind of fluids. Yes, I'm going to start with fluids because most maintenance is, fluids. It's really good to know what kind of fluids your car takes, in how many, the quantity it takes, the quality, and how often you should change these fluids. So I'll begin with oil. Oil is the bloodline of an engine. They said how the engine is the heart of a car. Well, the oil is the blood of the heart. Without oil, an engine will simply not function. It will seize, it will overheat, and it will blow up. And that is, putting together the extreme case. Otherwise, the more likely scenario before any of that happens is that it will simply just wear out. Parts of it will overheat. If you have turbochargers, most new cars these days come with small engines that are turbocharged. The turbocharger is going to overheat and wear out, blow up, all sorts of things. And trust me, you do not want to be replacing a turbocharger if it's very expensive. So, oil. Depending on how new your car is, you either use a single grade oil or a multi-grade oil. What do I mean by this? Single grade oil has the same level of viscosity. In other words, its thickness is pretty much the same. So when you put it in the car, it will start out at that same viscosity that you've put it in, but obviously, just like with anything, the way it reacts to heat is that as you drive and the engine heats up, it will heat up this oil and it will become a little bit thinner. So that is what a single viscosity oil is. It starts up really thick and gets thinner as you drive. And really, there are very many disadvantages to this. One, you don't want a very heavy oil when your engine is cold, because the oil pump is really going to struggle to pump this oil through, to pump it round a cold engine. And this is where most wear and tear in car engine takes place, in that cold start in the morning before the oil has properly circulated. So how has this been fixed? So these days we have what we call multi-grade oil. So multi-grade oil is oil that has two viscosities pretty much. What do I mean by this? This oil has two states of thickness. It's basically made out of, it starts up as a very light oil, then it has some additives which make it heavier or thicker as the car engine warms up. So how do you tell the difference between single viscosity oil and a multi viscosity oil? If you see an oil with just one number, for example SAE 40 or SAE 50, that is a single viscosity oil. That means its thickness is 40 or 50. Of course 50 being a thicker oil than 40, or SAE 30, you know, but SAE 30s are really rare. Most likely you'll find SAE 40 or SAE 50 in Uganda. So then what's a multi-viscosity oil? This is an oil with two viscosities, as I mentioned earlier. This is where you find like it has 15W40 or 20W50, that kind of thing. Pardon me, I'm getting into a junction. So how does this double viscosity oil work? So basically it starts up as a very light oil. As you can see, the first number, which is like 10W, 5W or 15W. So W basically stands for winter, but in this country we don't have winter. So basically this is the cold thickness of the oil. So the oil will start up as a 20 or a 15 or a 10 or a 5, which is really good at cold startup. As soon as you start the engine, the oil pump won't struggle to pump it around the engine as quickly as possible. And as you drive, more importantly, it will get thicker. So it will take on the second number, the 40 or the 50. So a 15W40, like that yellow can sold at Shell, will start off as a 15, and then as it gets thicker, it will become a 40. So when the engine is really hot, you have a very thick layer of oil that is protecting you know, the metals from rubbing across against each other, and therefore preventing wear and tear. And this is exactly what you want. When the engine is cold, you have a thin oil which can very easily move around and lubricate parts, you know, before you start driving your car hard, protecting your car. So yeah, I am sure this is one of those things that you didn't know. So next time you go buying oil, yeah, put this in mind. Now, the most expensive oil is not necessarily the best oil for your car. The first thing to put in mind when deciding which oil is good for your car is, one, what is the manufacturer prescription? What sort of oil does the manufacturer say you should put in your car? So as long as your car is pretty much low mileage, anywhere under 100,000 kilometers, please put that oil that the manufacturer recommended for your car. If your car is older, you know, like most cars that we drive in Uganda, 150,000 kilometers, 200,000 kilometers, find something a bit thicker, a bit heavier. Also, given the fact that we do not have winter in Uganda, our temperatures don't really go down that low, you really don't need those very low oils. And yet our temperature is actually high, and sometimes you really sit in this traffic jam. It's really hot. It's a hot day. The jam is heavy. Yeah, so just, you know, take up the thickness of the oil, well, you know, viscosity high, 1 or 2. You can always increase the hotter side. Maybe you can leave the colder side as the manufacturer states. If they state 15W30, maybe you could always put a 15W40. Yeah, something like that. This car, for example, recommends 15W40. Sorry, 5W40, but 5, and that's full synthetic. 5W40 is, so the 5 side of it is really thin. There's no winter in Uganda. Honestly, it's not. I don't think it's thick enough to protect the engine. I have over 115,000 kilometers on the clock. So yeah, I use 15W40. Sometimes I mix it up a little. The car takes 6 liters of oil. I give it 4 liters of 15W40 and 2 liters of 20W50. You know, just to thicken up the mixture just a little bit from the 15W40. But anyway, that's me. Also, if your car is a little bit older, chances are you have some leaking seals and all sorts of things. So a thinner oil is more likely to leak as compared to a thicker oil. Okay, so pretty much that's it. So how often should you change your oil? They say after every 3,000 kilometers. I normally don't change my oil depending on distance traveled, because you need to put in consideration, one, the health of your car and what kind of journeys you move. If, like most of us, you just commute home to work, work, home, home to work, and most of that commute is in traffic jam, so the car is idling most of the time. You're turning off the engine, turning it on, stop start, stop start. Your oil is more likely to decompose a lot faster. There's a lot more, what do you call it, carbon in the oil, so your oil is going to turn black faster. Yeah, and so if your driving is more of that, change the oil more often. However, if your driving is more on the highway, high-speed driving, the engine gets up to temperature, you get to burn off the carbon, yeah, that kind of driving, yeah, your oil can last longer between journeys. Oh, and by the way, if your car never gets a chance to, you know, do a high-speed long journeys, every once in a while, just give it one, just for the sake of it. Your engine will love that. So yeah, pretty much if you put in a good oil, just change it twice a year, and that is assuming you just commute from work to home, home to work, work to home. Yeah, twice a year, 3 times a year, just depending on your distance, should do. These days you can actually have an oil that you can keep for an entire year. If your car is one of the new cars, you have full synthetic oil, something like a 5W40, fully synthetic. Yeah, car is new, everything. Please, you can nail a year, but again, it depends on your driving conditions. 2, turbocharged engines or naturally aspirated engines. So naturally aspirated are those that do not have turbos, which is, yeah, they don't have turbos. If your engine has a turbo, just please find out. It has a T on it normally. There's a, and you know, the one of those words behind on your ports, maybe it says 2.0 T or T something something. Normally a T means turbo. So cars with turbochargers are very sensitive to oil. Please keep your oil changes good, like stay on top of your oil changing game. Turbochargers do not entertain bad quality oil. They don't entertain the wrong oil. Yeah, any oil problems, please, turbochargers do not entertain that, because they need good oil to be cooled. If you have oil leaks or God knows anything, and you have your engine is turbocharged, please get that sorted as soon as you can. So what else do you change when servicing? Maintenance parts. We have all sorts of filters. Simplest, oil filter, of course. Every time you change oil, you need to change the filter. Why? Because the oil goes through the filter before it gets into the engine. The old filter is normally clogged with all sorts of gunk and rubbish from the previous oil, so you need to change the filter, to have good oil. Most times when you do an oil change, they'll definitely do they'll change the filter as well. Like, they won't even have to ask you. Then there are those filters that you can change once in 3 years. Here we have the fuel filter, we have the air conditioning filter, or the cabin air filter. This one filters the air that comes in through the air conditioner, so you don't have dust and bad smells and pollen, for those that are allergic to pollen, and all sorts of things when you turn on the air conditioner. Yeah, many cars have all sorts of filters. Depending on model, basically, and type of car, basically. So the more filters you have, the more filters you have to change. Then what else? So fluids, gearbox, gearboxes also need fluid changes, but this is most people do not keep cars long enough for the gearbox to need a fluid change. If your gearbox is good, you have no mechanical issues whatsoever, you can nail 10 years without really touching the gearbox. After that, if it's what we call the torque converter gearbox, most automatic gearboxes these days are not torque converter, but if you're using a torque converter gearbox, your mechanic should let you know, give you this information. You need to change the fluid. There are some multi-clutch, dual clutch transmissions. A lot of new cars are using them. These also need fluid changes, and gearboxes are far more complex, but normally if it's all good, drives well, shifts well, don't touch it. Then there are cars that have differentials. All cars have differentials. Most cars differentials don't need to be touched because they're front wheel drive, and the differential is in the gearbox. So gearbox servicing will also service the differential. Some cars have 3 differentials. This has 3 differentials: front, center, and rear. It's a 4-wheel drive, so that differential fluid needs to be changed. But then again, it's one of those fluids, 10, 15, 20, actually 20 years. Really, you can do differential fluid for 20 years without touching it. So any car that has not been on the road for 20 years, unless it has issues, because by 20 years, let me put that in perspective. Just give it 200,000 kilometers. Under 200,000 kilometers, if you don't have any issues, don't touch any of those fluids. What else do you do for servicing? Eventually your battery will, wear out. So before your battery gets to that very, very, very critical stage, switch it out. Then okay, so yeah, I think that's the part. Then very importantly, and this is what a lot of people don't know, washing your car is actually maintenance. And by washing your car, I don't mean, you know, washing it and just so that it looks clean. I mean washing those components under the car, inside the wheel arches, you know, those parts that most people never ever care about is maintenance. Why? Your car is made of metal. Metal rusts. You do not want metal to rust. What causes metal to rust? Moisture. The quickest way for the metal to rust, the exhaust, the suspension, the underside of the car, is when you have mud or soil that is stuck there and then it holds on to the water. The body of the car, both on the sides and under, will rust much faster. If every once in a while give your car a good wash on the underside, inside the suspension is shock absorbers, whatnot, those parts, you know, and they dry up very nicely and they are clean, they don't have, so maybe dust is fine, but what I'm talking about is having mud or dirt that actually holds on to water. This is what causes the problem. So if your car is clean, yeah, it will likely be better maintained. Yeah, and sometimes, you know, give it a wash yourself. You'll never know, you'll be shocked by what you'll find, you know. Every once in a while, just wash it yourself. You'll be able to find out so many things about your car. Then learn the correct thing that's going to go onto your car. Learn the type of tires that you should use. Learn so this is safety. A lot of the things are also safety. If you treat your car well, your car will treat you well, trust me. Check your brakes regularly, very, very critically. Brakes wear out, have them checked every year. Every year, have your brakes checked. If they are getting to critical levels, please change them out. If your brakes make some kind of squealing noise, you know that as you're stopping, it's a sign they're wearing out. They are designed to have that, to make that kind of noise when they are becoming thin. Yeah, so when they start making that kind of noise, please have them checked. Of course, they could also make that noise when they are wet. Let's say you've driven through rain or you've driven through some water. They will also make that kind of noise. So yeah, oil, all sorts of filters, battery, brakes, yeah, and of course anything that fails along the way. But if you maintain well, most things will not fail. That is the trick, trust me. And when you replace, do not replace with cheap parts, because those cheap parts will bite you in the behind. Put correct parts, good parts, give yourself peace of mind for the next many months. Then probably last but not least, spark plugs. Back then, spark plugs were that item that you needed to change a lot more frequently because they were made of copper and some other materials that wore out quickly. So spark plugs are those small things like the size of this finger that they're placed in the engine to, you know, ignite the petrol as you drive. These days, spark plugs are made of a material called iridium. Some people say it's a space metal that came to Earth via a comet or an asteroid. It's a very strong material, so these days spark plugs pretty much last the lifetime of the car. But back then we needed to change them. So however, if you feel like your car is not being as efficient as it used to be, its fuel economy has dropped, something's just not right with it, have your spark plugs looked at, and if they need changing, please change them. So yeah, that's oil, spark plugs, filters. We have belts for cars that actually need for engines that use belts. So in this case we have the fan belt, we have timing belts. These are components that you change out around every 100,000 kilometers. 100,000 kilometers can be 5 years, can be 10 years. So just give it 10 years for a car that has started off well. 10 years later you can change your timing belt, drive belts, yeah, things like that. Okay, so yeah, please maintain your cars, keep them in good shape. Please like the video, don't forget to subscribe, and yeah, comment, ask questions, anything else that you need to know, let me know. If you have any topics that you think I can talk to you about, explain, please let me know. Thank you very much. Take care.